Palestinian authorities called for an international investigation into the discovery of mass graves at Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, where 392 bodies of people killed by the Israeli occupation army were found. In the United States, police repressed students' protest at least 4 universities as the demand to stop government funding for the genocide in Palestine increases across the country. And in Guatemala, the Special Prosecutor's Office Against Impunity ordered a raid on the offices of a non-governmental organization being investigated for possible child trafficking. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Friday, Palestinian authorities called for an international investigation into the discovery of mass graves at the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, where 392 bodies of people killed by the Israeli occupation army were found. In this regard, civil defense officials detailed that 10 of the bodies found showed signs of having received medical treatment. Others showed signs of torture, while about 20 showed signs of having been buried alive, including children. On the other hand, ambulance and rescue teams reported suspicions that some of the victims had been subjected to organ theft based on sutures found on the bodies. After the discovery of the mass graves, the United Nations, the European Union, and countries such as Colombia, the United States, and France called for an independent investigation into the matter.
These executions in the Nasser medical complex make us demand an international investigation in this matter. We therefore call on the United Nations Secretary General and international institutions to create an independent international investigation committee to investigate the crimes committed in the Gaza Strip. And we are fully prepared to participate in any international committee.
Likewise, civil defense official Jamen Abu Suleiman urged the international community to exert pressure on Israel to stop its crimes in the Gaza Strip.
After 202 days of war, we ask the international community to put pressure and immediately stop this aggression against our people, and to allow the entry of all the human rights centers of the world and the international press to denounce these crimes.
On the other hand, the Palestinians identified their deceased relatives in Al-Najjar hospital after the death due to the continuous attacks of the Israeli occupation army on the city of Rafah. In this regard, humanitarian groups warned that Israel's plans to enter the city of Rafah, which is home to most of the displaced Gazans, would create an apocalyptic situation.
I have nothing to say to you except to keep protesting to pressure the Biden administration to end this war. This war must end. Unfortunately, children are the main victims of this war. The enemy does not achieve any objective without killing innocents. 80% of the victims are children and women.
In the United States, police repressed students from at least 40 universities in the country who are demonstrating to demand that the government stop its funding and support for the genocide committed by Israel in Palestine. Police beat and arrested dozens of students from Ohio State University who are holding an encampment to denounce Israeli crimes. On the other hand, at least 2 female professors at Emory University in Atlanta were assaulted and arrested earlier in the day. In the last few days, more than 400 students and professors have been arrested at universities in California, Massachusetts, Texas, and New York. Despite police harassment, opposition to genocide in Gaza continues to resound loudly on campuses, and more encampments are being registered at universities. Protests and encampments in solidarity with the Palestinian people are taking place in at least 19 universities in the United States. Students at Columbia University in New York were the first to demonstrate, setting up dozens of tents and Palestinian flags on campus on April 17th. As the days went by, activists at Harvard, Berkeley, Yale, the University of Southern California, the University of Texas at Austin, among others, joined in.
am a Jewish student who's actively pro-Palestine and proud of it. I think it's very important that students here are able to not only voice their, opinions about a genocide that's happening, but can do so without fear of arrest or repercussions from the universities.
I have made a lot of friends over the past week at the encampment, and I've learned a lot. And at the same time, it's a culture of fear with the administration's draconian response.
And another demonstration in support of the Palestinian people continued on Friday morning at Sciences Po Paris in France, where students spent the night in the school's historic building. The Palestine Committee of the Research University scheduled a press conference for Friday morning calling for the clear condemnation of Israel's actions by the institution and the end of collaboration with all entities deemed complicit in the systematic oppression of the Palestinian people. On Wednesday evening, a dozen tents had been set up in the courtyard of another of the school's buildings before the police came to dislodge the activists and supporters of the Palestinian cause. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Welcome back. In Guatemala, the Special Prosecutor's Office Against Impunity ordered a raid on the offices of a non-governmental organization being investigated for possible child trafficking. The head of the Special Prosecutor's Office, Rafael Kurunchiche, indicated that the operation was coordinated in conjunction with the National Civil Police and that it was in response to a complaint filed against the agency. Although the name was not specified, images on social networks showed that the raided offices belong to the non-governmental organization Save the Children. Kurunchiche insisted on the commitment of the Public Prosecutor's Office to fight for the integrity and protection of Guatemalan children.
This case starts as a result of a complaint through which the public minister is informed that some facts have been allegedly committed against Guatemalan children and adolescents. This is due to the fact that the Public Prosecutor's Office has initiated this investigation, which is still in progress.
Brazil's largest indigenous mobilization, Tierra Libre camp, reaches its last day in Brasilia. For a week, the native peoples insisted on the demarcation of their territories. Our team tells us more.
For the last 20 years, indigenous people from all over Brazil have been meeting in the Federal District of Brazil at the Freeland camp, the largest indigenous event of a country with continental scale. This year gathered more than 6,000 representatives from more than 200 communities.
In these 20 years, one of the most remarkable things is the strength that multiplies. Every year, the indigenous people of Brazil get stronger together. This is something that gives importance to the collective struggle of all of us, even with our diversity, with our territories in different regions, are here fighting for the same cause, which is the demarcation of our territories so that we can honor our ancestral memory.
The communities denounced in the Congress the legal thesis of the temporary framework, approved by the Agribusiness Parliamentary Front, a measure that jeopardizes the right of indigenous people to the demarcation of their lands. On the other hand, despite the progress made with the demarcation of 8 territories during the Lula administration, during a meeting with the president, the native people demanded speed in the demarcation of 6 more indigenous lands that have been promised by the president in his first years in office.
This year, in the current era of President Lula, we vote for him. At the meeting, I took the opportunity. Our situation has improved for the ethnic group, but we still need demarcation, and we talk about this issue. Health also improved. Now it is coordinated by the indigenous people themselves, but there are still problems.
A report published this week by the Pastoral Land Commission reveals that 2023 was a record year for violence in the countryside. 70% of the cases were due to land conflicts. indigenous and traditional people are the most affected by violence.
We are in the struggle and we go through a lot of violence, discrimination, prejudice. Just yesterday we received very sad news here in the camp. Gunmen attacked our village while the indigenous health secretary was working.
During the last 30 years, their territories in Brazil lost only 1% of their native vegetation, while in private properties, the destruction is exceeding 20%. At a time when the planet is moving towards collapse, the native people are telling the world that the future is indigenous.
Ignacio Lemus y Pedro Viaba para Telesur.
The International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, accepted the lawsuit filed by Venezuela against Argentina after verifying its violations of the Chicago Convention following the hijacking and subsequent scrapping of the TeleSUR transport company's plane. In compliance with the rules of procedure, the international organization has verified that the complaint conforms in form to the requirements of Article 2. The notification of the ICAO, and in accordance with Article 3 of the regulations, notified the members of the Council of the receipt of the claim. In the aforementioned complaint and in report made by Venezuela, it claims that since June 8, 2022, the Republic of Argentina has committed violations of several articles of the Chicago Convention through the application of the illegal unilateral restrictive measures of a discriminatory nature against the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. The government of Venezuela alleged that such violations occurred in the context of the inconveniences suffered by the non-scheduled flights belonging to the Conviasa consortium and leased by the latter to the TeleSUR transport company. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In India, polling stations opened for the second phase of the elections in which 970 million voters have been called to vote. Polling centers cover constituencies in 13 of India's 28 states and federal territories, which will vote between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. local time on Friday. 88 seats in parliament will be contested, including that of opposition leader Rahul Gandhi, the main rival of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is seeking a third term. The third phase of the polls to be held in the first week of May, with results to be announced on June 4th. India is witnessing the second longest polling in history after the first post-independence cycle in 1947, which lasted for 4 months. The polls are spread over 44 days and cover a total of 102 constituencies across the country. The 7-phase election process, which began on April 19th, will determine the next Prime Minister and the 543 members of the lower house of Parliament for a 5-year term. In China, a crew of 3 astronauts from Shenzhou 18 mission took off on a rocket bound for the Tiangong space station. The crew took off on a spaceship on top of a Long March 2F rocket from the Zhuqiang Satellite Launch Center in China's northwest. The mission is led by the Guanfu, a fighter pilot and astronaut previously part of the Shenzhou 13 crew in 2021. The astronauts will stay at the Tiangong space station for 6 months to carry out experiments in various fields. In the research process, the crew would try to create an aquarium on board and seek to raise fish in zero gravity. This is the latest mission in Beijing's space program, which aims to send astronauts to the moon by 2030. On Friday, Chinese President Xi Jinping met with U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken in Beijing. According to official communication, the Chinese leader stressed that his nation and the U.S. should seek common ground rather than engage in vicious competition. In the meantime, Xi also declared that his nation is happy to see a confident, open, prosperous and flourishing United States, and in this regard, he stressed that he hopes the United States can also view China's development in a positive perspective. In this context, they also agreed to hold their first formal talks to address concerns over artificial intelligence.
I'm pleased to announce that earlier today, we agreed to hold the first U.S. PRC talks on artificial intelligence, to be held in the coming weeks. We'll share our respective views on the risks and safety concerns around advanced AI and how best to manage them.
Friday marks the 30th anniversary of South African leader Nelson Mandela winning the 1994 presidential election, ending the racist apartheid system in South Africa. At the age of 75, Mandela would win the African country's first free elections, being endorsed by his African National Congress Party and being sworn in as head of state on May 10, 1994. During his life, Nelson Mandela was known for being an activist committed to fight against segregation in his country and for always advocating for the right of the black population in South Africa and the world. Despite being sentenced to almost 30 years in prison, the lawyer and activist was always against promoting hatred and resentment towards white people, imposing instead a pacifist message that led him to be awarded with a Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. Nelson Mandela, South Africa's first black head of state, in his inauguration speech called for an end to racial oppression and advocated for his nation's freedom.
Never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another and suffer the indigenous. And suffer the indignity of being the scum of the world. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa.
And we continue with the world of sports, in this case football, as the Brazilian player Marta Vieira confirmed that she will retire this year as a player of the Brazilian national team.
The 38-year-old football player and one of the most iconic figures of women's soccer announced her departure from the Brazilian national team as a player. In this sense, the striker confirmed that 2024 will be her last year wearing the Brazil national uniform. With this retirement from Marta Vieira da Silva says goodbye as one of the best players ever in Brazil. It is worth mentioning Marta is the player who has scored the most goals in a women's or men's World Cup, and also achieved to be played 5 Olympic Games during her career, winning 2 silver medals in 2004 and 2008.
In the United States, an immersive multimedia exhibition highlighting the life and career of soccer superstar Lionel Messi arrived in Miami. The Messi Experience, a dream come true, combines artificial intelligence and 3D visuals throughout 9 installations, including one that allows visitors to simulate a selfie with a soccer player. Entering a world fueled by childhood dreams and record-breaking achievements, visitors are transported to experience and discover the man behind the legend. Digital activities with the ball, with live scoreboard updates and personal virtual engagement with Messi himself are among the activities for a complete immersive experience. In this way, fans experience the art of the greatest player to ever step on the field.
This is an immersive experience, which immerses you in the life of the Argentine star Lionel Messi. It is an incredible experience to enjoy with family, with friends, with your partner. Incredible how they have used technology, artificial intelligence. In one of the facilities you can take a selfie with Lionel Messi, which I find very fun. If you do not know him in person, well, you have your selfie here in the Messi Experience.
In Argentina, the 48th edition of Buenos Aires Book Fair was inaugurated on Thursday under the slogan Book, Culture and Democracy. Organizers of the activity strongly criticized the government of Javier Milei for cutting funding to culture. The president of the organizing foundation, Alejandro Vaccaro, also highlighted the plural character of the fair, but at the same time warned that its survival is at risk after almost half a century given the country's political context. In this way, Vaccaro underscored the position of the book fair as a space of cultural resistance and stated the foundation would not undertake the extra expenses generated by the president's presence at the event.
El presidente de la nación, luego de despreciar nuestra feria,
the president of the nation, after despising our fair, does not blush and asks to participate in this space, and his presence is scheduled for next Sunday, May 12, at the Central Arena or La Rural. His participation in the fair, an extraordinary showcase, implies a series of extraordinary expenses, which the Book Foundation cannot afford. Mr. President, I tell you with one hand on my heart, there is no money. Attending the fair this year represents another rebellion and resistance as never before. This cultural and activist space will be the central axis around which the repudiation of cultural forces to the devastating policies proposed by this government will revolve.
We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.